This is a story that features my good friend the Grim Reaper.
Hi there.
Once there was a man who had 12 children, and he was very poor and could barely afford to keep them all fed and housed. So when his wife came to him and said, "You are going to be a father for the 13th time," the man threw up his hands and said, "There's no way. There is no way we can bring another mouth into this house. So what I will do is I will find someone else to raise the child." But that is what people did sometimes in those days. They would go and find a wealthy family who had no children and give them their own child to raise as their own. So the man went down to the crossroads to see who he could meet to give to his own child to raise. Well, the first person that came walking along the road was the Lord Almighty. And God said, "I will be your child's father." And the man thought for a moment, and he said, "I don't think you'll be a good father, because you don't treat all people equally. You make some people rich, you make some people poor, you make some people sick, some people lame and blind. It's so not fair. What sort of father would you be that treats people unfairly? You would not be a good father." So the Lord Almighty shrugged his mighty shoulders, traveled on down the road. Next along came the devil, Satan himself, and he said, "Give me the child, I will be his father." The man thought for a moment. He said, "I don't think you would be a good father. You see, first you tempt people to do evil, and then you punish them for it. That certainly is not fair. What sort of father would you be?" The devil shrugged his shoulders and went off down the road. Finally, at last, on his pale horse came the Grim Reaper, Death himself. And he said, "Give the child to me, I will be his father." And the man thought and said, "Yes, yes, you will be a very good father. You treat all people equally, men and women, rich and poor. All people eventually die. You treat them all the same at the end. Yes, you will be an excellent father." So when the child was born, and it was a boy, Death came to collect him, and he took him home and raised him as his own son. Now, I have to say, Death was an excellent father. He sent the boy to the best schools, saw he was clothed in the best clothes, and fed the best food. The boy grew in health and strength and intellect. Death sent him to a fine university, the finest in the world, and he became a doctor. And when the time came for him to be graduated and go out into the world to find his fortune, Death said, "I will give you a very special gift, my son. I will give you the power to tell if a person will live or will die. You see, if you go into their sick room and I'm standing at the head of their bed, they will live. If I'm standing at the foot of the bed, they will die." Well, this was in fact an excellent gift because the boy became quite a famous doctor. It was said he could tell at a glance if a sick person would live or die. He traveled all over the world and was paid fabulous sums of money for his work. And finally, at last, he was called to the palace of a king, and he was met by the king's advisors, and they said, "You must help the king, he's very, very sick." And the boy said, "Take me to his room." He went up, and there stood Death at the foot of the bed. The boy shook his head gravely and said, "I'm very sorry. The king will not live." And the advisors all cried and wailed and said, "You must save him. We will do anything. Don't you realize there's a famine in the north? There's an army massing in the west. We need our king now more than ever. If he were to die, we would be in such dire straits. Please, anything. You must do anything you can." And the boy said, "Please leave me." And the advisors all left. And as soon as he was alone in the room with the king, he picked him up and turned him around in the bed so that now Death stood at his head. And the king got better. And the boy was well rewarded, but he had not left the castle. He had not gone very far when he met Death in the street, and Death grabbed him by the shoulder and shook him and said, "You cheated! You cheated! I did not give you this gift so that you could cheat with it." And the boy said, "Father, please forgive me. Forgive me." They were so desperate. They needed their king to be saved. I promise I will never do it again. And Death said, see that you do not. Well, many, many years went by, and the boy's fame grew. And finally he was summoned to the palace again. Only this time the king himself met him, and he said, it's my daughter. It's my daughter. She's so sick. She's my only child. I love her so much. You must do something for her. Well, the boy was taken to the princess's sick room, and there was Death standing at the foot of the bed. The boy said, I'm sorry, the princess will not live. And the king began to weep. He began to weep and said, my little girl, you must save her, please. Please do something, anything. I will give you anything you want, any riches. I will make you a baron, a duke. You can take my daughter's hand in marriage. Become one of the family. Well, the boy, although he remembered his promise to his father, could not resist such an offer. And he said, please leave me. And he reached down and he picked up the frail little princess in her bed and turned her around so that now Death stood at her head. And she became well. Well, this time Death did not wait to meet the boy in the street. He grabbed him right by the front of the shirt and he pulled him down through the floor and down through the earth and down deep, deep inside the world. And the boy screamed and said, Father, please forgive me. And Death said, look where we are. The boy looked around and he saw they were in a vast underground cavern. And all around them were candles. There were thousands, no, millions, billions of candles stretching off into the distance as far as he could see. And some were tall and bright and some were low and guttering. And Death said, do you know where you are? I said, no. He said, each candle here represents a life on earth. The ones that are tall are at the beginning of their lives. They have a long life to live. The ones that are short are old and are not much longer for this world. We took him over to a little alcove where one candle was set apart by itself. It was low, just a puddle of wax and a guttering flame. And Death said, this is your candle. And the boy said, Father, it's so low. But you can save me. Take one of these taller candles and transfer my flame. Give me a longer life. Please, I am your son. And Death reached for his son's candle. And he put his hand over it and snuffed it out. And the boy said, Father, why? Why? And Death said, when you were given to me, it was because I treat all people equally, men and women, rich and poor, and even my own son must die. And that is the story of Death's Godson. I hope that you enjoyed it.